Hi, so in this video we are going to talk about the American colonies. Now hopefully you have a map of the colonies laid out. If not, if you want to draw a quick sketch of them, that would probably be pretty helpful. We need to make sure that you have them properly labeled. If you could make sure that you've got Georgia down here in the very bottom, named after King George. Again, Georgia was sent as or King George sent James Oglethorpe to Georgia to have a place for prisoners who couldn't pay their debts to the king to stay. So if you notice, Georgia looks a little bit different today than it would back then. Then we have South Carolina and North Carolina. At one point, King Charles, and the female form of Charles is Caroline. King Charles had sent 8 proprietors over to the New World to settle this land. And they were one place, and then they realized eventually that they are so different, and we still to this day, North Carolinians think that they are somehow better and different than their brothers to the south. So we have North Carolina, South Carolina. Virginia, which was named after the Virgin Queen, Queen Elizabeth, is right here. And then we have Maryland, which has got a little bit odd shape, but it's named for Queen Mary. Now, Queen Mary sent a fellow by the name of Lord Calvert Baltimore over here, and he was supposed to make a safe haven for Catholics. And if you ever go to Maryland, they do have a lot of Catholic churches. That would comprise of our southern colonies. Starting from the bottom, we have Delaware, largely Native American. We have Pennsylvania, which is named for William Penn, Penn. William Penn started a colony as a place for brotherly love, and said that anybody from any background or group or religion, like true religious freedom, came from this right here. And so if you go to Philadelphia, that's their motto, is brotherly love. We have New Jersey. Anytime there is a new in front of a state, it should imply that there is an old. And the old would come from our patriarch, not patriarch, that wouldn't be the right word, our matriarch, our mother country. So if we go across the Atlantic Ocean, we would see that there is a Jersey in England. We have New York, and just like I said for New Jersey, if there's a new in front of it, that would imply that there is an old one across the ocean. Now, New York is one of those places that I think a lot of people get rather confused about. New York is a large state. So we have New York City, which would be about right here. This is Long Island. And then New York State. So it's very different from one side of the state to the other. That would comprise our middle colonies in the green right there. And then we have our New England. New implying that this is really a large chunk of the colonies were started right here in Massachusetts. Which the Pilgrims and the Puritans landed over here in this part. The Pilgrims and the Puritans were over here. Now, the smallest state that we have to this day would be Rhode Island right here. It's not really an island. However, it is quite small. You can drive across and back in a day, and it's not a big deal at all. Then we have Connecticut right here. Connecticut was also founded for religious freedom. A guy named Thomas Hooker started Connecticut, and I always remember this a silly way, but I always remember that the hooker goes to Connecticut. So if whatever it takes, right? So and then there was a guy named William Patterson. He had founded Rhode Island. Both of them had left Massachusetts, and the Pilgrims and the Puritans, who were not very religiously friendly or open-minded, they both left so they could start their own places. And then we also have New Hampshire, and we have Vermont. Both of these are up here, and then later on, for the longest time, we just considered this to be Massachusetts. but later we end up getting New Hampshire. So we have our three different what's the word I'm looking for? Regions. There we go. With three different regions, and we really need to kind of separate what made them different and how they're going to end up working together. Geography is a big, big thing that decides stuff. So on your map, if you would, we're going to have little individual like triangles over here, because we have a mountainous range that's running over here, and hopefully you know that that's the Appalachian Mountains. Now the Appalachian Mountains ends up being like the barrier that prevents the colonists from going west any further. For a very, very long time. Now over here we have the Atlantic Ocean. But again, geography is going to impact a lot of stuff. Not only geography, but, well, so whenever we look at like New England had an incredibly cold climate. So cold, it's just, it feels, there's no way for you to really recover from being outside until you go inside. It's just really, really cold up there. And their winters would last from, they would start seeing snow in perhaps September, and the snow could last as far as into April or May. And then while it's so cold up here in New England, they didn't really have any good warm days, and so that's going to end up impacting what can they do for money there, versus in the South. I really don't like saying the word warm because it's hot. It's very hot. That our winters in the South are going to look something along the lines of, we might not ever see snow in North Carolina, out here towards the beach. However, if we do get snow, it's going to be, well, I always, ask my students, when do you start wearing like coats and pants? And so that might be October. We start wearing like, boots and coats and pants, and versus our shorts and tank tops and flip-flops. And we really don't wear them very long as compared to up here. Usually by March or April, we start loosening up our winter gear and we start reverting back to our flip-flops. So down here, we end up having a very long season. Versus in the middle colonies, they actually have legitimate seasons. So when I say that up north, they're going to have winter, and then they're going to have a very short summer. Versus in the South, we're going to have a very long summer and a short winter. And then spring and fall really kind of get lost in these two. However, in the middle colonies, you truly have all four seasons, where you're going to have, a month or two of very hot weather, 3 months of fallish weather, and then you're going to have 3 to 4 months of winter weather, and so you're going to actually have seasons. The weather impact, as well as the soil, ends up impacting what they can do for money. So in the South, because we have such long summers down here, all the way from Maryland all the way down to Georgia, we have a climate that helps feed into an agricultural economy, so that we are growing things like tobacco and indigo and cotton and corn. We're growing tons and tons of things, and we're able to ship those things out of our major ports. Not North Carolina. North Carolina had a terrible port system because of our graveyard of the Atlantic that was out here. But Charleston and Savannah or in Norfolk are able to ship out lots and lots of goods. Now we do have Wilmington, and Wilmington can ship out lots of things. However, they don't really have this climate up north, so that's going to really change why they came and what they're able to do. In the South, they came for money, knowing that you could grow lots of crops down here, like the tobacco, the brown gold, that ends up impacting why people came to the South and why they stayed. The people that were in the South, while they were religious, we're going to call them Anglican. And we say that, and now this Anglican later ends up developing into your Baptists and your Methodists and your Presbyterians. But while they were religious, that's not why they came here. And so you do see, we do have churches. This is considered part of the Bible Belt now. And it's not the main focus, though. The main focus on why the South developed would be for the almighty money. Up north, because they cannot grow crops the same way. Now, they do have small gardens. However, they're going to be doing a lot of shipping, a lot of whaling. They're going to be doing a lot of blacksmith, where they make metals, and they're going to be working inside to get things done. Or they're going to be out here, killing whales and fishing. Generally up north, once they got there, they stayed and they were able to make a living inside, but while they had religious freedom. The Pilgrims and the Puritans end up being a huge force. And like I said earlier, so you have the Pilgrims and the Puritans that end up settling Massachusetts. And then you have people who broke away from the Pilgrims and Puritans. You have Hooker, and then you have William Patterson. Oh dear, that's not the right name. I'm sorry. I'm gonna fix that. These people, they came for religious freedom. William Patterson did something else. It's gonna come to me in a minute. You had a lot of Puritans, and if we can recall, Puritans are people who purified. They believed that the church needed to be cleaned up. Now, in the middle colonies, they're able to do kind of a mixed bag of these two things. In New England, where they're doing a lot of their trading, that is something that the inside of the state of New York over here and Pennsylvania, which are landlocked, they end up having to do a lot of trading, and a lot of later they end up becoming factories. However, New Jersey and Delaware and this part of New York are able to do a lot of trade when it comes to trading, like shipping and whaling and stuff. They're also able to do a lot of agriculture down here, and places like Hershey, Pennsylvania end up getting started. In Hershey, Pennsylvania, which you need cocoa beans in order to make that chocolate, but you also have to have milk, and that means you need to have dairy, and so they were able to have rolling hills just made perfectly for the dairy cows. Also in the middle, they came for different reasons. And for New York, they came for money. And in Pennsylvania, like I said earlier, he really wanted some brotherly love, so religious tolerance and freedom. So you're going to have different reasons as to why these areas were settled for the middle colonies. Because you have so many different reasons, it's going to be quite diverse. That you have people from all different ethnic groups. Typically, up here, you're going to see a lot of people that are coming for religious freedom. So they're going to have the same ideas. And down here, we're trying to make some money. So if we're making money, we're trying to make sure that we can support our families. And so they're going to have a general common identity. Versus in the middle, this is where you're going to see lots of ideas and lots of willingness to tolerate different groups. Now, later on, when we talk about the American Revolution, and then after that, when we're getting our country started, this is going to matter a great deal, because the people up here are going to care about different things. They're not going to really care about how long the tobacco season is, or if there is going to be a tax on tobacco. Whereas down here, they are really going to care about that kind of stuff. So, some questions we've got to throw at you. Why would the South be conducive to an agricultural economy? Conducive meaning, why would the South be a great place to grow crops? Now, whenever we're talking about cash crops, what are cash crops? How did they get that name? Cash crops are exactly as what they sound like. They're crops that are grown for money. And people would grow whole fields of tobacco or cotton or indigo or rice. They would grow huge, huge plantations full of this. And then they would end up selling off their tobacco and taking that money and then buying everything else that they need. Now, small farmers were not able to do that. They didn't grow as big cash crops. They would have to still have a garden and still be able to make all the things that they need to support their house. So, why did people come to the South is something that you should be able to answer. I'm going to let you make that connection while we go up here to the north. When we're looking at the New England colonies, the northern colonies, why is New England conducive to commercial or to trading? And hopefully you can tie that back into their weather as well as their very, very rocky soil. All right, and so that's all we have today.